Hello everyone. We are a few days away from the Oscars, and one of my favorite underrated categories are that of the short film categories. Not only can they be incredibly tricky to predict, but often you get a really eclectic mix of films. So like I do in other years, I drove to the local movie theater and watched all the shorts, the live action, the animated, and the documentary. And today I'm going to give my predictions of who I want to win, but more importantly, who I think will win. And I'm going to go over some key stats that you may want to consider when making your predictions in these tough categories. So let's start with the animated shorts. The first animated short is called The Boy, the Mole, the Fox, and the Horse. This is based on a novel from 2019. This animated short from the UK is about a boy's search for his lost home through a snowy wilderness. Accompanying him is a mole, a fox, and a horse, showcasing beautifully hand-drawn, almost watercolor-looking animation. This fable is a calming and delicate children's story. Sometimes the dialogue felt a bit stiff and ripped right off a series of, inspiring posters with phrases like "nothing beats kindness." And while its sincerity is admirable, as well as its animation, the short felt a little bit more of a highlight reel of the best parts and lines from the novel and didn't quite resonate for me on its own. The second film is probably the year's best title, My Year of Dicks. This is based on a chapter in Pamela Ribbon's memoir. This short follows a teenage girl's quest to lose her virginity. This was one of the biggest surprises for me. This kind of has a Pen 15 or Freaks and Geeks vibe to it. It's funny, quirky, it's reflective, it's personal, and it even has like an underlying tenderness throughout. Perhaps a challenge is it's not exactly one narrative story, but more of a collection of episodic shorts stuffed together, with each episode being a new chapter of the character's kind of sexual quest, and each offers its own unique kind of animation style. But yet, I thought the whole thing was really quite a delight from start to finish. Next, The Flying Sailor from Canada. This is from the makers of Wildlife, which was nominated in the same category in 2011. The Flying Sailor is loosely based and inspired by the real-life event in 1917 when an explosion caused a British sailor to land on a hill naked and uninjured. The animation is really beautiful and the sound work is equally as interesting. Being only 8 minutes long, the story is much simpler than I expected. It's solid, but the story is likely too minimal to really stand out against the others. Another short with a great title, An Ostrich Told Me the World is Fake, and I think I believe it. This is an Australian stop-motion existential crisis comedy about a telemarketer who learned from a mysterious ostrich that the world is in fact stop-motion. It's a clever, almost Kaufman-esque Truman Show premise, and one where it's pretty easy to admire the animation because you can actually see the animator's hands working in the background throughout. That being said, though creative, it's not incredibly emotional or really funny enough to float to the top of the pile, at least for me. And finally, we had Ice Merchants. This was my second surprise of the bunch. Ice Merchants, it's about a father and son and their daily journey, which involves parachuting from their house to a village where they sell ice. I think what makes this film special is how the story really sneaks up on you. It's beautifully animated, nicely scored. The story is told with zero dialogue, and what first feels like you're watching a daily routine of parachuting off to work, then suddenly kind of turns intensely gripping, but then unexpectedly moving. Of all the animated shorts, I think this is the most subtle, but it's also the most emotionally engaging one, and I don't know, I really liked it a lot. So, of the animated shorts, my favorite were probably My Year of Dicks at number 1, and then Ice Merchants really closely behind. My Year of Dicks was just on a purely enjoyment level. I just liked it the most. It's both artistically solid, both in kind of animation and in writing, and it's just the one I would greenlight into a TV show ASAP. And the Ice Merchants, which is the one that I just emotionally resonated with me the most and just offered everything you'd practically want in an animated short. So who I think is going to win, now that's interesting. Just for fun, after each screening block, Yvette and I ranked the films from our most favorite to our least to see if our favorites align. And we both had the same number 1 and 2, and it was pretty close in the order, except she liked the boy, the mole, and the fox and the horse a little bit more than me. Last year I brought up this stat, which was that since 2011, the winner in this category has either been in English or offered 0 dialogue. So this year, there were no films that were not in English or 0 dialogue, so that didn't really help eliminate any of these ones. The clear frontrunner currently for this category is The Boy, the Mole, the Fox, and the Horse. It recently won 4 Annie Awards as well as the BAFTA for Best British Animated Short. Another thing to mention is this category often favors shorts featuring a cute animal. And here there's not just one cute animal, but there's 3 of them. This one though is really tough. I feel confident that we can eliminate Flying Sailor and An Ostrich Told Me the World is Fake, as I think they're probably likely too slight in substance to win. So I think it's between the other 3. Ice Merchants, I think that's the one that feels the most emotional and well told. And it did just win the Annie for Best Short Subject. But just looking at previous winners, I don't find many winners that really resemble the short, except for the fact that it kind of pulls at the heartstrings. My Year of Dicks. So I think this film will speak to a lot of younger voters in the Academy, but I do question the relatability among the older voters. I'm really looking at last year's winner, and I thought it was really surprising. Last year, Robin lost in this category over a much more abstract choice, which is the windshield wiper. And I think, the voters looked at Robin last year and went like, too cute, not artistic enough. And I genuinely think the same thing could happen to The Boy, the Fox, the Mole, and the Horse, or whatever the animals. I got them out of order, but you know what I'm talking about. At the end of the day, I think it's a 3-way race, and I think it's going to be a battle within the membership between the boomers and the millennials. And one older lady at my screening said that her favorite was, quote, The Boy and the Mole one, and also said that she could have, quote, done without the My Year of 5 Dicks one.
Right. The last one I could have done without. It was what, a year and 5 dicks?
Oh yeah,
a year and 5 dicks.
Despite My Year of Dicks looking nothing like previous winners, I don't know if I've seen a film quite like My Year of Dicks be nominated in the category. So I don't know, with the recent upset of last year, I'm just gonna go on a limb and I'm gonna predict My Year of Dicks as the winner, with maybe The Boy, the Mole, the Fox, and the Horse being the safest pick, and Ice Merchants being the potential spoiler. But I'm gonna go with My Year of Dicks. It's a tough one though. I really won't be surprised by any of those 3, but I'm looking forward to seeing what happens. All right, let's move on to the live action short film category. Okay, starting with the first short, An Irish Goodbye. This is a short from Ireland that tells the story of 2 estranged brothers who are forced to reunite following the ultimate death of their mother. This recently won the BAFTA for Best Short Film. In my opinion, I thought it was lighthearted, it was fun. However, it didn't find the premise entirely original. It kind of felt like a 90-minute feature crammed into a short, and the end result was entertaining, but wish it had, deeper layers to it. The next short is from Denmark. Evalu is a young girl's search for her missing sister in Greenland who fled her home and sexually abusive father. Based on a graphic novel, this short is both dreamy and dreary, with the main character speaking to her lost sister, which serves as a narration for the story. It's beautifully shot, it's very poetic. In the end though, I don't have the confidence that this will quite land in the top the voters' minds as being particularly memorable, as there isn't many surprising revelations within the story. Another short was Le Pupille. It's an Italian film, which is the longest of the bunch. Le Pupille is about a group of rebellious young girls at a Catholic boarding school during the season leading up to Christmas and a time of war. This was also produced by Alfonso Cuarón. The short is beautifully shot with some occasional odd stylistic choices with the editing. It's often funny, and it's as cozy as Christmas morning. The moral of the story is unclear, and the short even kind of playfully winks at that notion. But it's a lush, cute period piece, and, you know, recalls other playful classic Italian films like Amarcord. So yeah, it was pretty good. Next, we have Night Ride from Norway. This is about a woman who takes a tram ride, and it takes a mysterious turn when she becomes the trans operator. This one had such a fantastic hook. Ultimately, as the story kind of unraveled, it did kind of disappointingly lead to something a little bit more traditional than I was expecting, and didn't quite live up to the original setup. And finally, we have The Red Suitcase. This is a thriller that follows a 16-year-old who is forced to remove her hijab while anxiously taking her suitcase through the Luxembourg airport. This was my favorite short of the lineup. It's got high stakes, it's heart-pounding, heart-wrenching, and just like last year's Take and Run, The Red Suitcase also is kind of about forced marriages and you know, it kind of creates that rattling experience that's really difficult to shake. So out of the live action shorts, which by the way is admittedly a pretty weak year compared to other years, if I can say so, my favorites were The Red Suitcase and Le Pupille. In comparing Yvette and I's ranking of the live action shorts, it was pretty close as well. We had the same number 1 and 2, just kind of in opposite order. If I had to choose who I think will win, well, you know, my general rule is unless a foreign film is obviously the clear and away best, it's typically safer to pick an English language film in this category, as there's kind of an English language bias in this category. So in fact, here's a stat coming right at you. Since 2010, every winner was an English language film with exception of 2 times. And that was the stat that ultimately kind of reassured me to predict The Long Goodbye. So this year, An Irish Goodbye is the only film entirely in English, though admittedly, sometimes the Irish accent is pretty thick. The Red Suitcase has limited dialogue, and from what I remember, some of the dialogue is in English. So 2 films I feel confident will likely not win, and that's Evilou and Night Ride. I think Alfonso Cuarón's produced film Le Pupille can potentially win on name recognition alone, and it's widely available on Disney+. And many Gold Derby experts are currently predicting the film as the winner for likely that reason. I asked some people outside the theater what their favorite was to get kind of a temperature check, and one said Irish Goodbye, one said Night Ride, and one said Le Pupille. Did you all just watch the live action ones? Did you have a favorite, or?
I did. I like the Midnight Train.
Did you have a favorite from this one?
The live action, I would say the Midnight Train or Late Night Train.
An Irish Goodbye.
It's probably your favorite?
It's probably, yeah.
Yes, I guess the Italian one.
So kind of answers across the board. But with that being said, I'm not going to overthink it. I'm going with the Irish Goodbye because it won BAFTA, won the BAFTA Best Short, and it's technically an English language film. And I think the title just kind of pops on the ballot. And Ireland's having a good year with Banshees of Inisherin, so An Irish Goodbye is my prediction for Best Live Action Short. All right, moving on to our final category, and that is the documentary shorts. Okay, so the documentary shorts. Now, a lot of these documentary shorts are a little bit on the lengthier side. I think our screening block was around 3 hours long almost, but I'm gonna give you a quick sum up of all of them, starting with our first short, which is The Haul Out. The Haul Out is about a scientist waiting in his hut to observe a massive walrus migration and the devastating results. The footage is pretty astonishing, showing thousands of large walruses surrounding the scientist's kind of little home that he's in. The documentary almost feels like a narrative short, offering little dialogue with no talking heads. It's simple, but it's nicely executed, gets the point across without excessive information and exposition. But next we have How Do You Measure a Year? From the director of last year's nominee, When We Were Bullies. How Do You Measure a Year is about a filmmaker asking his daughter the same exact questions every single year for 17 years. It's incredibly simple and it's bare bones, almost home video-like quality production. Watching the subject change her opinions and personality shift over the course of time is definitely a compelling experiment, similar to kind of the Up series or Boyhood. It's interesting. Strangers at the Gate is a US film about a Marine who comes face to face with the immigrants he once threatened to kill. What starts as kind of a true crime documentary starts to turn into a more reflective journey to overcoming programmed hatred. And I don't want to give too much of the film away. It's at times emotional, especially seeing kind of, you know, how the Islamic community provides a new perspective with just simple acts of kindness and acceptance. I think it's relevant and something I could see the Academy membership really connecting with. The next documentary short in the block was The Elephant Whisperers. This is from India, and it's about an indigenous couple who care and fall in love with an orphaned elephant given to them. It's gorgeously shot and features likable subjects and an even more lovable, adorable elephant named Ragu. Ultimately, and admittedly, it's not the most urgent documentary in terms of important subject matter. However, it's the documentary that was the most charming and lovable from the lineup. Finally, we have The Martha Mitchell Effect. It's an archival documentary about Martha Mitchell, a Republican cabinet's wife, an unlikely whistleblower of the Nixon administration, and the effort made to keep her quiet. So the subject is interesting. It's relatively straightforward, traditional documentary approach. However, since it's entirely archival footage and we don't obviously get to hear from Martha Mitchell herself, I found it, kind of a bit on the drier side and, a little difficult to fully invest yourself into. So out of the documentary shorts, my favorite was honestly The Elephant Whisperers. Often I find myself kind of resisting those crowd pleasers, but there just wasn't another documentary with more important subject matter that I just liked more, to be honest. So when comparing with Yvette, her favorite was surprisingly The Elephant Whisperers too. So if I had to pick who I think was gonna win, that's a tricky one, I think. I do feel comfortable taking How Do I Measure a Year off the table because I feel like the nomination is the reward for a film that's so kind of low budget. Haul Out has a climate change angle, and while the lack of information actually made it more interesting to watch, I don't know if it really resembles kind of that typical documentary winner. And The Martha Mitchell Effect, I'm not really considering either because it's just so heavily archival. So to me, it's between The Elephant Whisperers and Stranger at the Gate. And I believe the documentary winners tend to favor films that feature humans over animals. It's just really difficult though. I think what's holding me back from predicting Stranger at the Gate is just that I have mixed feelings about the film. And I'm just curious if voters will feel the same way. I don't know, like typical winners I think goes to an important issue or a lovable subject. Ultimately, I could see either film winning, but I'm not sure why I'm overthinking it. My favorite film happens to be the front runner, so I'm just gonna predict Elephant Whisperers as my predicted winner, Stranger at the Gate being the one that scares me of winning the most, because I think that could also happen, but I'm going with Elephant Whisperers. So there you have it. Those are all my thoughts about this year's Oscar shorts, as well as my predicted winner, but I want to hear from you. Comment below what your favorite shorts were and what you're rooting for. If you haven't seen these shorts yet, I definitely recommend you do. It makes the category so much more suspenseful and fun on Oscar evening. And many of the shorts are actually available to watch online for free on like YouTube or Netflix. So I'm gonna leave those links in the description below on where you can find those shorts. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, feel free to do so. I have some last minute Oscar related videos rolling out this week before the Oscars that you don't wanna miss. Oscar experiments, final Oscar predictions, and of course, Oscar winner reactions. So connect with me on Twitter and Letterboxd, link in the video description below. Thanks again for watching, and until next time, my friends, I will see you at the Oscars. Out.